Welcome to Talk Design Podcast, the space where creativity meets conversation. I'm Adrian Ramsey, your host, and as someone deeply entrenched in the world of design, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the minds that inspire me and the hope that they will spark something special within you too. From a design past crafting women's swimwear to pushing the boundaries of performance sportswear, from mountaineering to international yachting, to implementing systematic innovation solutions that transcend boundaries in aerospace industry. My heart remains rooted in architecture, and exploring the emotional tapestry woven by built spaces is my fascination. My journey in design has been what can only be described as a life of design. I want to thank you for lending me your ears. I'm eager to embark on this next episode together. And for those of you who prefer to watch and listen, you can catch this episode at YouTube. That's youtube.com/@TalkDesignPodcast. My guest on Talk Design today is Laurie Laizure. Now, Laurie heads up interior design community. Now, if you're on Instagram, she's got 110,000 or so followers in there, but this is a community about interior design. It is the most fabulous resource and most fabulous community. Laurie's going to tell us some cool stories from there. She's based in New Hampshire, and I'm going to ask her about her backstory to get started. I feel very privileged to have her on the show, and I really hope that you all dig in and enjoy this. You're probably following her if you're an interior designer or an architect that is listening. If you're not, and you're not from there, jump on and see her conversations with interior designers and architects. This is a community, and people share so much that there's so many learnings in it. Laurie, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and I am excited to be here. I started our community originally on Google Plus about 12 years ago. I was on Twitter when social media was sort of
Brand new.
Brand new. Instagram wasn't a thing yet. And I found it really difficult on Twitter to have deeper conversations. It was 120 characters were the limits. And I would go to interior design chats, but they would be a lot of repetitiveness in the hour. And I just wasn't getting deep. How are you handling backlinks? How are you scheduling social media content? How are you doing blogs? How are you getting people to come in and guest blog for you? Things that I think a lot of people were sort of learning in that infancy of blogging and the infancy of social. And I also, at the time, owned a wallpaper business, and I wanted to get to know interior designers. So I thought, well, I'll just start something. And then at the time, Google had its own social media platform that has since failed, but it was the place to go if you wanted to immediately index your links. So if you were a blogger, you were there. If you were, they were really great with authorship, so that they could identify a person as having a knowledge base, which was very interesting. And they started a thing called communities. And so I put interior design community and jumped on it. And I thought, oh, maybe, 100 people will, be interested in coming
Maybe
over here
100.
someday.
Maybe.
I thought, that's what I was thinking. I could maybe get 100 people in here at some point. And we had 200 by the first day, which I thought was what? And it grew from there. And by the time we were over on Google Plus, it was over 100,000, and we have 110,000 now on Instagram. We have 21,000 on Pinterest. We have a Facebook group. We have LinkedIn. So we're all over. We have our blog on interiordesignCommunity.com. So we are everywhere now. And we try to bring content in each platform the way that platform wants to exist and wants to communicate. And we try to always build community so that people come together and share information. And when that started taking off, I ended up selling my wallpaper business and concentrating on interiordesignCommunity.com and the social media platforms that we could grow the community. And we are an official nonprofit, and we are trying to build this in a way that eventually this will all be owned by interior designers, have an interior design by the community. the board is community members, and if I step down someday, they're going to appoint someone else who will take over and hopefully keep this going, and the value that it brings by bringing people together and helping people, have that, empowering people to do better in their own work, but also like the stance of interior design in the industry too. We can negotiate with brands. We can talk to them about what designers need. We can, it's easier to do this as a group, to
And
affect change.
It's advocacy for design, and ultimately, yes, for the people who are in the community. But whilst they win, they're not the major winner. The major winner is the client that hires them.
Right.
That's the one who truly wins. Yeah.
Because they're more knowledgeable, they understand better, they're able to have a more profitable business, hopefully, because they're learning how they're maybe not, taking that process, doing that process correctly, so that they're able to become profitable. If they're not profitable, they're not doing a great job because they're not happy.
Yeah.
So all of that trickles down to a better experience for sure for clients. And we know that for sure.
Undoubtedly. Like, I belong to a couple of different community kind of places, and one is about architects all around the world, and then have my own group of them that I hang out with as well, like separately, as well as then having, things like this interior design community where it's a go-to for me. I have a look on there, there's certain sites that are just go-tos that when I'm on Instagram, I don't look at it anywhere else, actually, just Instagram, but I get plenty from it. And I really love the way people engage, and they're pretty upfront. They're pretty upfront on there, and it's great because you can be really candid and honest on it really easily. And I'd say out of most of the different places that I comment on things, it is the one that gives me the most return comments from other community members, not from the person who runs the show. Yeah.
Right. Yes. And I try to, when there's good conversations happening, that's what we want to see happen. We want to see friendships happen. And we've seen designers make friends and build collaborations, become partners, all through meeting each other through interior design community. And we want it to be social. We want there to be, that's a really good idea. Could I email you about that? I have a few follow-up questions. You said you have that on your onboarding documents. Would you mind sharing those with me? Things that we see all the time. And we love that because it really does make people realize we're just people at the end of the day. And we're, why aren't we talking and sharing and learning from each other? And I think that sometimes the organizations that have had like local chapters have struggled with this because people weren't feeling comfortable being vulnerable in their, in their local areas. They didn't want to say, hey, I'm having a problem with my contractor or my client's awful, because that's their local.
Especially in local areas. Like, I know even with the architects that I hang out with, we have a fairly strong code of, none of it's public, but a fairly strong code of, say, for instance, there's 3 of them that are all in Chicago and that I talk to regularly, and they all talk amongst each other regularly as well, but in a broader group, but I know that they'll reach out to each other and go, hey, I'm designing this, or I've got this. Have you ever done anything in this area, that there's any knowledge you could share with me? And the others will come back, go, look, we did this project and this project, and these were things that we discovered along the way. These were a couple of hooks and barbs in the whole thing, and just things like that. Yeah,
I love that. There's nothing better than that, I think, and to realize that there are, and I think that even in the local chapters, they've gotten so much better. Transparency has happened so much better. Like, I think social media has allowed that, because people start to see you as a person. Maybe they see, oh, you have cute kids and you have a husband, or you're those kinds of things that humanize us all. So I think that feeling of like competitiveness maybe has gone away a little bit, hopefully all forever, because
Yeah.
it's wonderful to see, we get a lot of the comment we get, probably the most out of any comment in the years that I've been doing it, 12 years I've been doing it, that is that interior design community makes them feel less alone. How do you stop doing something that helps people on that level? I mean, that's why
Actually,
it's taken over my life, because it's just like,
I think that that's a really
heartwarming.
good point about it. It does make them feel less alone. It makes people feel like they're not isolated. And, I certainly know that from doing the podcast. So having my podcast, I am constantly connecting different people across the world that I know. And you got to remember, I've probably got, I don't know, 200 episodes or something, but I go, oh, that, I was talking to, should be really good to talk to her, or they've got a real synergy there, or two people who may never meet, but are both absolutely brilliant at what they do. Let's put them together. And a couple of times we've recorded podcasts with them together. And that's when they've been introduced. I've said, can you come on this podcast? I'm going to put a collaboration together and let's talk. And they'll be like, oh,
It's
wow.
fantastic.
And then they're like, okay, so I need to go to wherever to meet you, or we need to get together, because they get that synergy. It's like matchmaking.
It is.
What it is they both have respect for each other. And in both having respect for each other, they have that first solid step to step up from. And
Yes.
the thing that I notice on interior design community, there's very little whining and bitching.
No,
It almost doesn't exist there, which
it
is,
doesn't really.
it's incredible, eh?
Yeah, I think that the community is really great about monitoring that themselves. And if there's someone that is, when I was first doing this, I would say probably more in the Facebook group than anything else, I was reluctant to get involved. I felt like this is not,
I was
I
about to
didn't come
ask this
in to,
question, so good.
I didn't come in to like be the parent of anybody. So, you guys are adults, you should be able to solve your own problems. And I, didn't really want to take a stand on
Mm.
things either way, to let
Mm.
the idea was to provide the platform for discussion, not to have an opinion
Yes.
per se. And for years, people didn't know I ran interior design community because I did it that way. I did it where you didn't see my face, I didn't interject. I just
Yes.
created the platform. But over the years, I've decided that there needs to be a little bit of that. I'm a lot more swift with my judgment these days. And I just quickly, if somebody is a bad apple or trying to start that
You,
kind of thing in the
yeah.
community,
You
they're just
close it
blocked.
down. Just gone.
Just blocked immediately. Like, I just don't care.
You remind me of my wife. She was the president of, like, what you'd call a PTA, parent teachers or whatever, at our school. And they used to have an open forum, like, a chat channel. And she's like, elevate, elevate, elevate. You won't elevate? Good. It's gone.
Right.
Find somebody to bitch to in the car park. We're about elevating and making it better.
Yeah.
We don't need to drag everything down. We need to lift everything up. I love I don't know about the ones you've, cancelled out of the program, but I love the fact that the way you set it up, you're obviously very good with words and very good with writing, but the way you set up the conversations. So it's not all about you. It's about, oh, so I've had this question. And from that, here's, and
Yeah.
it sets up a tone, the tone of it that you put into your writing just sets it up really beautifully to be uplifted, not to get down in the, minutia and everybody's being dragged through it. And it's about, okay, well, how do you do it? And how can you help others do it?
Right. And I think that that's imperative because we also don't want to, constantly be bashing peers or constantly be bashing clients, those kinds of things either. These are just like real business questions. And we get hundreds of questions a month. I get probably over 100 DMs a day from designers, and sometimes they want a question, sometimes they just want to vent to me, or I listen to designers' problems as about 50-60% of my job is to listen to what designers are going through. And so I've over the 12 years, I'm in a position where I probably know what designers think, feel, it's very few times am I surprised. If I do a poll and I'll say, hey, I could probably guess where that poll is going to go before I've even put it,
before you
because
even
I know
put it
how
up.
they think,
Yeah.
And even
And you
then
know
I'm like,
what they
oh,
face.
I worded that incorrectly. I know some of those people voted no when they really meant to vote yes, because I know them and I know how they stand on this topic,
Yeah.
So maybe I needed to word that differently, because I'm usually pretty good at knowing those kinds of things now, just because I study, I read all the questions and I read all the answers, and over the last 12 years, I can get to know what the designers think about.
Like I know, like you'll have, a lot of comments on each post as well. Like,
sure.
So it's a highly engaged community. Like I was just scrolling down at the moment, and there was, would you, credit a designer that only did 15% of their work, 84 comments. And they are often long form comments.
They are.
They're not
It's
they're
very
not like just
Instagram than most.
Yeah, it is. Like, there's one here, what gift do you buy your client at the end of a project? And, there's 163 comments. And I go, I don't think there's one. There was one that said my invoice, but most of them would be, I don't know, 30 to 40 words minimum.
Right.
Minimum.
Yeah.
And I go, that's engagement. And it's full of great ideas and great ways to interact with people. And if people want to be part of a community that you can share in and shares back, this is it.
I think that's what they want too, that is what designers have been yearning for, is a place to, feel safe enough to share that information where they're not going to be judged, but they can get ideas from each other, and that feeling of friendship. And that's really what we want to see happen on a daily basis. I mean, we love that when they follow each other. We do this let's follow each other thing quarterly. And so we'll put out like, let's follow each other. And I give everybody a little bit of warning, like, this is when it's going to happen. And people get like 200, 300 followers that day, usually. And, the messages I get back afterwards are like, oh my gosh, my feed is so much better. I'm so much happier now that when I'm looking through scrolling Instagram myself, because I'm, seeing these great designers who I'm friends with, who I've been who I've been having all those conversations with, but we're in the comments and they're not following each other. So we try to do those things too, so that people really connect with each other, because that's the goal, is really that they're friendly with each other and get to know each other. We're just the space for that to happen.
You're kind of like, the space. I was going to say the entertainment venue. You're kind of like the venue where people can come and connect.
We're the cocktail party.
Yeah.
And you guys are the guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Now go mingle. Yes, go
mingle. Please.
Let's dig into some of the things around what we see changing in the industry. I know we'll get onto AI, but before we get onto AI, what do you see changing with such a big community? People, for instance, is there more people employing interior designers now than ever before? Where does it sit in the dollar, when I say the dollar value, where does it sit in the socioeconomic values of people that employ? What do you know from that sort of perspective?
So I have been studying this quite a bit, and I do think that we have a real opportunity in the design space, because I think that people are very frustrated with fast furniture in general. I mean, I think every consumer out there, name a consumer that can find a piece of quality furniture that is going to last more than 5 years. I mean, is there anyone out there on their own that could go to any furniture store, high end or low end, and pick that out a piece that for sure will last 5 years.
It's getting harder and harder.
It's harder and harder for them to do that. And I think that consumers know it.
Mm.
So with COVID happening and with the supply chain issues that have happened, I think people are very concerned. I think that brands are very concerned about local sourcing. I think that they're thinking about local regional shows that are sort of showcasing manufacturers that are local too, makers that are local, brands that are local. That is going to be coming, I think, is becoming more important. And I think that the value of design I would like to see is that, if you think about there are enough people in the 1%, if even a fraction of those people did design, if every one of the 1% did design, I think that it's something like seven or eight clients per designer in the United States, in a project for every seven clients for every designer.
For every designer.
There are. So in the 1%.
Yeah.
So that's already established, but not everyone hires a designer. So, and the other part of that is how are designers able to use the knowledge they have about the construction of furniture to be able to be a resource for consumers who want higher quality goods, but maybe can't afford design services. They're not going to be able to have your services, but how do you do that? We have partnered, one of our sponsors is a new company called allmine.com, and they are Allmine.
So ALLMINE.
MINE, yep.
Yeah.
And they are doing some interesting things. They are to the trade only. So they originally worked with the builders, and they took the builders' model homes that are, the model home in every new construction out there.
So they're a mass
and they
builder.
turn the model homes into shoppable showrooms. No, they're not. They don't do any building. They're a furniture supplier.
No.
But
What I'm saying is they go to builders who are doing multi-home.
Some of them are some of them are luxury, and some of them are huge, ones out there. But they turn the model home into a shoppable showroom, and you can go and shop that. And now they've pivoted to design too, so that, and for me, I think about any interior designers following, because I've been following designers for all these years. They might have, like, a typical designer might have 1,000 to 3,000 followers. And of those, less than 1% are usually their clients. A fraction of 1% are their clients. So you're talking the rest of that, 95% or 99% plus are potential customers that could buy a piece from you. So how do we easily monetize, good construction percent into, e-commerce situation that's easy, that designers don't have to touch it. They can just, these are the pieces I like. Here are the sofas I trust. Here are the lamps that I think are cool this year, in this style or that style. And they're helping designers do that kind of thing too. So they're going to have, embed your own. I'd love to see that kind of thing happen, because I think that, when I think about a design business, I think about the problems that I can see from the outside with the business structure itself. And I think one of the major problems is profit buckets. I think that designers need more profit buckets, and they have those available to them. So how do they maximize that? And I think that one of them is leveraging their social media. They have a lot more people that are following them that would buy from them, but maybe are intimidated by the process of design or couldn't afford the whole thing. How can designers separate that into a bucket and make money on that bucket?
Yeah, right. So I notice a lot of interior design companies are doing, like, trying to say, they're doing like online consultations. So they're doing those kind of things. Yeah.
But that still requires you to be there, right? Like, you still have to be there. And if you're there with your cheap service, you're not supplying your good service that you're being paid a luxury service for at the rate that you really want to. So as soon as you get a new client who is paying you the full service, those clients, you don't even want to look at them, because they're
not good business model.
Yeah.
If it's a cheap service.
Yeah, it depends. If it works for you, that's good, but how you put those buckets together so that you're making your business profitable. And the other part of it is to build the business that is a legacy business, that is something that when you're done
you can
with like
sell.
design, you can sell it. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just your name and you, but
Mm-hmm.
you've built a business. And there are lots of people out there that have done this in many different fields, like an architecture practice or a
Mm-hmm.
plumbing business or
Mm-hmm.
a,
Graphic
tile.
design, marketing. Yep.
Yes. So why aren't designers building their businesses up with succession plans and ideas of how to build this as a legacy business so that they can sell it? It's a product too. So, and that requires a real deep look at the financials and how you're making your money. And, that's tricky. I know designers that are really high-end luxury designers that don't really 100% know what their profit margin is, exactly, because of all these gray areas, like there's
Oh,
just like,
I would totally agree. And even like in my own, I often go, on this job here, we made more margins on things. On this job here, we made more hourly on things. On this one, we made it by quoting a price. So just depending on what the client is, we try to go in with a quoted price.
right,
And then we have to be constantly watching scope creep on that.
sure.
And I mean, from my point of view, and I'm not saying I'm an expert at this, so I'm going to be really keen to hear what you say. Say we go in with a quoted price and we say, okay, well, for the design fees to cover these areas, and we'll just talk interior. So we might have hard finishes, maybe some layout changes. I only do interiors for people I'm designing the house for. So a layout change is my own problem. If I'm shifting a
Right,
wall, it's because I'm shifting a wall because of what I've already chosen, from
right,
the architecture point of view versus and the structural point of view versus what the interior is going to do. So that's my own problem. But if I was working with somebody else who had designed the house, then I would be saying to them, hey, can we shift this? I need more space to hang a curtain, or my tiles are this. Can we just narrow this so I can use 2 full slabs of tile or a full slab of stone rather than a part slab of stone, or whatever? Those are those
right,
kind of, that's ideally the conversation interior designers and architects and building designers all have, is that
sure.
conversation. So they're working in synergy so that it's well planned, So when I look at that, so I go, okay, so we're going to quote for that, quote for that, quote for that, and we're putting a number of hours against it. And then we're saying these are the limits of what we're quoting for. This
Yep.
does not include these things. I would say that an interior design happens in, like architectural design and building design as well. There's always scope creep, and being
Always.
comfortable to be able to go, we're moving from this to this, but that you can show the client where they're moving to. So yes, that's all covered there, but we'd have to move to hourly here because it's not covered in that scope. And I think one of the biggest things that I think is valuable in that when you're doing that is so often the designer just gives, and
Yes.
they don't go ask for the money. I don't like to go and ask
No,
for the money either. What I will
no.
do is, if I'm giving it, is I'll put on my invoices, I will put out of scope work with a price, no charge.
I love that. I tell designers to do that all the time.
Yeah,
I put the value on there at least so that
yeah,
they know that they got something from you for free.
yeah.
Otherwise you're just feeling bad about it, but they don't even know. They have no
That
idea
that's it. They have
that they
no
crossed the
idea.
boundary.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
And
when you,
them understanding the boundaries at the start is probably the more important thing. Is when you're in that hiring phase, when they're hiring you, is to be able to go, okay, so cool, we're going to execute these things, but these are the things that we won't be executing unless you require them later. And if you do, this is going to be an indicative price. We don't know the scope yet. I'll give you the example of that. And when we're designing a house, we and we've got a bit of land, and we charge them we charge them an upfront fee to meet them, to discuss their land, and we have a program we call land whispering. So we go and look at the land. It's a deep dive on the land. Anyway, that's got a fee to it. At that point there, we're writing a report or giving a report, and we may or may not be engaged to do any more work. That's come see. And it's our time covered. It's probably a loss leader by the time we do it. It's not making us our full, what we could make. But then when we take that client on, or that client takes us on, because it's a synergy of the both, as that happens, then what we like to do is we like to go, okay, we're going to quote you this for conceptual design, the schematic. We're going to quote this amount. And then we're going to quote this for organizing our specifications. And we're going to quote this for working with the third parties, the engineer, whatever it is. And then we're going to also quote this price per builder that we engage to work with, not in a tender process, because we don't do tender, but per builder that we work with. So if you want us to talk to 5 builders for you to help you select one, then we're going to charge you a fee each time.
Right. Yeah.
Where we see the scope creep shift is we will have had a budgetary point that we're kind of planning on, and we're looking at the amount of hours that we feel we'll be putting into it. What's the previous one? Were we profitable? What happened with it? And then the client will say to us, oh, could you just do this to this, or we've been discussing, we see what you mean, well, let's add this in to it. And we're like, yep, cool. If it's a little piece, we go, look, we can do that and it won't be any additional cost. But if it gets beyond this, then it's going to be another portion of cost, and predictability will be something around this. I hate to charge that. I hate going back and asking for more for that.
Right. I think every designer does.
Thing. Yeah.
Everyone hates that point, and I think a lot of designers try to have their, buckets where they're, maybe the design is one aspect, the project management is one aspect, the procurement is one aspect, the installation might be an aspect of the profit, and clients can choose full service to get all of the buckets, or they can choose, part of that. It's just, how are we going to leverage what we have built already to make, profitable businesses? And are we looking at that to make sure we are profitable too? So, what is our profit margin? What is it like actually,
Where is it actually sitting, and how many hours were really spent by which team? I find that the easiest one with team members is to have them account for all their hours, and you go, oh my God, we spent 42 hours in that.
Yeah.
We didn't allow for 42 hours.
That's the thing, is sometimes you didn't understand that particular thing was going to cost that much to do. And that's where the shaving of the hours constantly happens for designers. And most of them do that. I will say a great percentage of them do that and then just eat it. They just like, okay, well, I guess that's just on me. You know what I mean? But then it's forgotten about next project, because it's like that sticker that every designer is afraid of the sticker shock that might not get them that next client.
Well, that's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Right.
And is the sticker shock on their services always, I know when, you total everything up and you go, oh goodness, we've got, I don't know, say 200 hours of work in this. It will be this kind of amount of work in here. Looking at each team member, what are they going to do? And roughly, they're telling me what it's going to take them. And then I'm looking at it overall and I go, okay, wow, we've got that. That's going to be that. Then we need to, what does that cost us? Then what do we have to add to that for our overhead recovery? What do we have to add to that for profit? What do we have to, in that overhead recovery, make sure that if I'm only 10% of it, my time covered, not just in my input, but my input in managing the team to get the outcome as well. And then How many meetings have we allowed for? Oh, only 3. Goodness, we're probably going to need a 4th, or we're going to need. And so I see this on the community. That's one of the things I love in there. I love the fact that the discussion gets to this level inside
Yes.
there. And I think I always get sticker shock myself when I add it up
Yeah.
before I ever present it. I go,
And that's scary. I
far
think
out
that
that
scares
much?
designers. I think
Yeah,
that they're afraid. They see how much it costs. And some designers, I will shave that off before the client ever saw it because they just are too afraid to present the real numbers, that this is really what it took to design this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
before they don't even allow the client to say, oh, I can't believe that costs so much money. I can't afford that. They already are so worried about that confrontation that they will already shave it off before they've even gotten to that
So,
point of view.
so
So
with that, is that all in the initial consultation and setup?
I think that needs to be, but I also think it needs to be. I think the real trouble is designers are, this is my nut I'm trying to crack right now,
Mm-hmm.
is designers being more transparent about how they charge right now with each other.
Right.
Because
Yep.
I think that's the key to this. Because if you will all talk to each other more about how you charge and why you charge what you charge and how you're making your money
Yep.
and being really transparent about it, I think that there will be a couple of benefits from that I see. Of course, they're going to have people who undercut you, right? That's why people don't want to share.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what happens more often is designers will undercut themselves because they're afraid to give the number that they think it's going to be, because they're afraid that will sticker shock the client and
Yep.
that they won't get the job. So they're already thinking low, and then they go in as low as they possibly can to that initial bid or whatever, and then they're working their way to please the client with that number
Yeah.
that got them
But
the
the
job.
client doesn't even know the difference.
They don't know the difference.
You
So why
could
are
you could
they,
have needed to go in at 100,000 and you go in at 60, and
yes,
the client doesn't know that you've shaved $40,000 off it, and they could
right,
have been quite happy to pay the 100. But when
right,
you've spent your
exactly.
60 and you're still doing the work, then you lose the relationship. Yeah.
Yes, because you're upset to begin with. You're like, okay, I'm scrambling and I'm not making the money that I should be making. And,
Mm-hmm.
so if I think that the key to that is to work towards better transparency. And I try to bring that out into questions that touch on money as much as I possibly can. I will say,
Mm.
I think designers need to be much more transparent with how they make their money. Like, say how much you're charging per hour. Say
Yeah.
how much can you go onto an interior designer's website today and find out what they charge? Like, it's like you cannot
Only for a
find.
set service. When it's like an online
Right.
thing, we charge $400 for it, or we charge
Right.
$1,000 for it. Or if you want to talk to
You
the
cannot find out what
principal,
interior
yeah, if you want
Yes.
Laurie, it's going to cost you $10,000 for the
Yes.
2 hours or whatever. But no, it's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible. And I think,
Architecture's the same.
yes, but I
Yep.
think that that's where I do think we lose clients over that, because people get intimidated by something they don't know
Yep.
when they're going to walk into what that's going to cost. I think that we also are not like, we hear about it a lot in the United States, is like designers upset that HGTV has ruined the perception of what, from the consumers, what design really is. And I think it's our job to show them different. And we
Mm-hmm.
are not doing as good of job as we could
Mm-hmm.
showing them different. If I go on Instagram, I often tell designers, like, why aren't you showing the process of design? Because you could be showing, like, this is what happens when the tile comes out and, we notice the floor has mold and we have to deal with that problem. And that's going to cost more money now because this,
Yep.
I don't see that on Instagram from any designer showing me the process, what it looked like. There are a few that are getting into it now that I really like, and I enjoy that. I'm like, you should be teaching the audience that you're the expert, that you know how to solve these problems, and that they wouldn't want to do it themselves because you're going to have a better solution. So show them the things that go wrong. Show them this is why,
Yeah, when you
you can handle it better than
pull out a shower box or something, the builder pulls it out and they find out that, the whole shower box is rotted out underneath or
right,
something.
right,
And
exactly.
they knew there was a problem, but they didn't know the extent of the problem, and suddenly putting a new beam through the wall or through the ceiling
Right.
or under the house or whatever, and those kinds of things. And as you say, it gives them the high ground of being able to go, we know what to do when that happens. We know what and it could happen.
Yes,
We can't
it
tell
could
it.
happen.
We can't tell if it's there or not until,
No,
yeah.
but you know how you know the solutions. So
Well, I'll give you a funny
you know,
story like that. So we were renovating our own home, and we had a fireplace sitting in the corner, and it was like a freestanding box fireplace. And anyway, I said to my wife, "Oh, we're going to pull that out." And she goes, "And what?" And I said, "I'm going to put a new one." And I just don't, that one's, it's no good. It doesn't work well, and it's noisy, and it's like, it's got a fan. And anyway, there's a whole lot of things. I said, I'm going to pull it out, put in a new one. And I want to make it more streamlined, like whatever. And she's like, okay, sure. And so on the weekend, this was a while back now, but on the weekend I went, pull that thing out of there. So I went up and capped it off on the roof myself, and then took the flue out, pulled the flue out of the roof, capped that off so no rain could come down, and then went down and inside the house and started to remove the firebox. So removed that, pulled it out, and then there was a big hearth that it sat on, and it was kind of bricked in. And I'm like, man, that's going to be a lot of work to get that out. So I went, I don't want to fill the house with dust from grinding it. I'm going to try smashing it. So I hit it with a hammer a few times, and I managed to not really, I loosened it and it came away from the walls a little bit. And so it was obviously sitting on top of the floor. And so I'm like, okay, wonder if it would break. I bet you there's no reinforcing in it. So I get a whole lot of levers and lift it up, and then I put a piece through the middle, and I've got it sort of jacked up. Oh, I don't know, maybe a foot, maybe half a foot, something like that. And then I smack it on the other side, and it breaks across the middle. And then I've got two pieces that are only just manageable to get out of the house. So do that.
right.
Come back in, and there's actually another lot of slate right on the floor level. And I'm like, oh, so somebody put this over the top of the other one. So I pull off the other slate, and there was a hole that was almost big enough that I could climb down, that had burnt through the floor originally in the house.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And you go, like, I look at it and I go, oh shit, we were lucky we didn't lose the fireplace through there at some point.
Right.
And then I go, somebody obviously dealt with it, but never fixed it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so now I'll fix it. But to fix it, I rang a mate who's a builder, said, hey, mate, come around. Can you give me a hand? And it took the best part of a day to fix that whole flooring piece.
Right.
That's just an additional cost.
Yeah.
And if it had been with a client, I would have been going, well, the builder will fix it for you. What's that going to cost? Oh, roughly about this. But the builder will do it for you. But as the designer, I would have not got paid anything for it. I would have just discovered it, or it would have been discovered. I would have been called in. There would have been an hour's meeting. There would have been, okay, what do we do from here? How does it affect what else we do? And there's no one that I would have billed for it.
Right. I know.
And yet I would have spent a couple of hours of my day with it.
Sure you would. And that's the kind of stuff that I think we need to start looking at from an industry standpoint, of those like lost leader things that we're not accounting for these things. And so you really don't know at the end of the day what your profit margin was, because of how many things like that happened in a project.
I'd like to thank Stetson Hats Australia for providing my amazing collection of open road Stetson hats. Since 1865, John B. Stetson has been crafting legendary headwear, adorning the heads of Western icons like Annie Oakley and George Custer. The open road hat debuted in 1937, beloved by artists, outlaws, presidents alike. Its timeless style fits the setting from city streets to open plains. Whether in the cab of a truck or my trusty Mini Cooper, the open road is all style. If you think hats aren't for you, you just haven't found the right one yet. Discover yours at stetsonaustralia.com or stetson.com if you're in the USA. Thanks, Stetson, for your support. Please share your Stetson moment by emailing me your photo to talkdesign@gmail.com. Let's celebrate the timeless allure of Stetson together. On every job, something.
Sometimes several somethings.
More often than not, I remember saying to a friend of mine, they said, "Oh, could you get me a sofa?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure I can." I said, you can, they're a good friend. I said, "You can get it for the same cost as I get it for." I said, "But if there's anything wrong, if there's any issue at all, I'm going to charge you $325 an hour to fix it."
Right.
And they're like, "Wow." And I said, "Man, it would take half a day to solve, minimum half a day to solve a problem with that sofa if it comes that way. And you're getting it for what I'm paying for it. So I've got no margins, but I'm not giving you half a day's work."
Right.
On top of that, if there's nothing wrong, I'm happy I'm happy to spend the, hour or whatever organizing it for you and all the rest.
Right.
That's my gift to you. And you're getting it at 40% less than it would be at retail or more. But if there's something wrong, I'm charging. Okay. You're really clear on that. Otherwise, go and buy it at retail and don't involve me, or I'll buy it for you and I'll charge you my margin.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and I think that
you
isn't it?
should do that. I think that you should be asking for the margin, even from friends and family, like to stay in business should be the thing that a friend or family member would want for you. You don't want someone, my sister's about to open a cafe and I'm excited to go there and buy things
at full price.
Buy from her at full price. And tip and that's her business. I want her business to be successful. I wouldn't want her to spend, to give me something. If she gave me something and my, stepbrothers and my, stepdad and like my kids, like there are 40, 50 of us in this town that are relatives of hers. Like if she's giving that much
away, she's going to go broke. Yeah.
She's gonna go broke. Exactly. And she won't have a business for very long. And that's not this is her dream. I want her dream to be a reality and successful for her. So I would love to go in and buy, breakfast for my family at her restaurant, things like that. I think that those are the things that family and friends would like to do. And especially, I think sometimes with creatives, they don't understand that how much time it really takes. They don't get that, to choose if I'm asking you to select me a sofa, you have, I think of 3 stores locally that I would go to. Most consumers will think of that they would go to, but you're thinking of hundreds of manufacturers that off the top of your head, and then how many different ways that piece can be constructed. Which ones do the best hand tied and down filled, and think which ones are doing a really great job and can give. If I say my budget is $8,000 and I want a sectional sofa, and you can tell me, okay, you're my friend, I think these resources are the best, and there'll be resources that consumer has never heard of. They're not going to be their local store. So, but the reality of that is they can be assured, if a designer specified that piece is going to be well made, that they're going to have that for as long as they want to have that, because that's what designers care about. They care about the quality of the piece, and it's not going to fall apart, and it's going to wear well. And
I was about to say it's life. It's wear life is really important.
Yes.
What sort of foam does it have in it, or what sort of feather does it have in it? What's the construction of those pieces like? Will it still look fine in 5 years' time, but would you sit on it? Would you, like, it's like the bed that, after 5 years, people go, "Oh, my bed, my back's aching." And you're like, yeah, but, like, it was a crap bed to start with.
Right. exactly.
It looked good, but it was cheap. It wasn't
And
constructed
sometimes
well, didn't have the right
look good
spring
and cheap is
sessions.
fine. You know, if it's a guest room that, you know, you
Yeah,
get somebody flops on it
buy a
once a week.
hotel bed. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. There's
Yeah.
times when looks good,
Yep.
isn't that great is fine. But there are times when it's your bed, when it's your sofa, if you're sitting on that on a regular basis, the chair that you're regularly sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always designers here that constantly tell me that one of the things they really insist on is good, you know, hardware for cabinetry because of
Yes.
like you're touching that, you're feeling that. It has, and oh
Yes.
my gosh, I mean, before I came into this industry versus now, I can feel the difference myself. I would not touch shitty
It,
hardware.
it's
Like,
like the old thing when, you know, you close the door on, say, a Mercedes Benz versus, say, I don't know, a Toyota or something, you know, that the
yes,
difference in the sound and the feel of it.
yeah,
Not saying either one was manufactured better than the other, but one felt different. And that
right,
makes a big difference. A big
right.
difference. Yeah.
Right. And and designers care about those little tiny, like, how does it close and how does the feel of the handle feel? And
Yeah.
what, you know, what height is that so that when you're getting up and you're pushing back your chair, you have enough room to get around, you know, every
There's a
little
lot
detail.
of science in it, isn't
There's a
there?
lot of science and a lot of math.
Yeah, yeah. There is, and I
Yeah,
think that that's where people don't, when I say people, I think that's where customers require more education
they
so
do.
that they realize how far you're going with it. I have a good friend, Kelly Vandermerve from here. He designs restaurants and things, and he gets right into, you know, the difference between this many millimeters of height in chair legs, this kind of cushioning versus this is fast moving, this is more slow, this is slow. You know, these are all these different things, how the light will pull and reflect off a tabletop. Just
Well, I guarantee you all of that relates to how much a client would spend even in
uh-huh.
that restaurant
And
to
he's a
have
hugely
comfortable,
successful, yep,
you know?
he's a really
But you don't want them to be
successful.
too comfortable because you want to be able to turn around.
Well, yeah, if you go, so he looks at the metrics of the restaurant and he goes, he understands the restaurant business and he goes, so your profits need to be here. You need this number of turnovers, whatever you want to call them, tabletops for the day or the night. At these times, this is what it is. This is what your margins are going to be. So we need this amount of people through here. We don't want them to dwell for more than 2.5 hours or whatever the figure is.
Right.
So therefore, everything in the environment gets tuned to that.
Right. Right.
And so it's scientifically worked out to
Absolutely.
tune the environment so that it works that way. I used to work with Airbus, the airplane manufacturer. I was training them in innovation. And when we'd work with cabin, I wouldn't do it, but they would. They'd be talking about the different seat materials, the comfort of the seat, how far the jet's going to go, how long people are going to be in it, what time of the day the most commuters are, whether the seats will be warm or cold, or what the material will be. Everything, every little piece of it is highly considered to the end purpose of the jet. So if you're just going to be flying, you know, say, I don't know, what am I going to say? Let's find somewhere exotic, Adrian. Let's go. Let's go to Nice from Paris. So it's a short hop. It's a short
Yep.
hop. It's a commuter jet. It is commercial. It will leave Paris in the morning, say. It's likely to be cold. The seats, the cabin temperature is likely to be cold. It will get to Nice where it will be warmer in the within a couple of hours. And it doing that journey, those people aren't going to be in there for more than 3 hours. Even if it
Right.
sits on the tarmac, 3 hours is going to be as long as it's going to be in that seat. 3 hour seat versus one that's going from where I live in the
Right.
Sunshine Coast of Australia to where you live. We're going to be
Right.
seated for 16 to 18 hours minimum.
Right.
What do we need in that? And this is what designers do constantly. They're
Constantly.
going, you know, you sit on that sofa and it's got this kind of material on it, then it's going to get to an ambient heat in about 2 hours. You're going to watch a movie from there. All of a sudden, not ambient heat, sorry, an extreme heat. The material in that sofa is not, it's going to heat up and then suddenly you're going to feel hot. Suddenly you're
Right.
going to go from comfortable or semi-comfortable to very comfortable to overheated. and it's to do with
Right.
the material, the foam, the structure, all these things. So is it a long dwell sofa or is it a short dwell sofa?
Right.
Yeah. Again,
Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? What are their heights? What are their, all of these
all these
aspects
things.
that designers think about on such a deep level, about every aspect of their client, what they enjoy when they first get up in the morning, if they are a coffee person or not a coffee person, and how do they get to the coffee maker? And
Yeah.
is the woman getting up and having like, doing her face and things like how does she do that? How do you navigate through the day? And where are you using your resources and how are you allocating those? I mean, designers are thinking about that a lot, but how many designers are actually sharing that information?
I think this is the key. What you're saying is it's so much the key that they need to better educate their clients and better educating.
I think social media is a great platform to just generate to educate the public about what a designer does. A designer's not this pretentious person who's going like, ooh, I don't think those, go with this.
I'm thinking pink. No,
Yes,
I'm not thinking blue, even though it's your favorite color. I'm thinking pink.
Right.
And that doesn't happen so much.
No. And it's really like, how can they really service the client on an intimate level to make their lives better? Form and function, and they care about it so much to their, like we talked about earlier, how many people do you know in any profession that would buy their client something? And I know hundreds of designers who literally have bought thousands and thousands of dollars worth of merchandise for their client because they felt like, oh my God, that chandelier has to be there. That rug
has
to be in that house, and they will make it happen because they need it there. They just have, like,
they're
you don't
invested.
realize how you're not as invested in this house at this point as much as the designer is. They want it to look the way it needs to look and feel the way it needs to feel. And they care about it so much because it is their art too. So it's it's a
I'm
different level.
100%. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I see it happen as well. I haven't done it myself where I've bought something for people that has been other than a gift, but I totally get it. And I developed a process that I call the emotional floor plan, which is for about the built structure first. And then from the built structure, it can end up in the interior structure, but about just understanding people more deeply and them understanding themselves more deeply so that they can make decisions. And again, my friend Kelly, he says form follows feeling.
Right.
And I love form follows function because it does that too, but it follows feeling. And when we get the feelings right, we really support the occupant.
And it's so hard feelings because people don't know their own feelings, so
that's the journey.
There's a lot of like neuroscience that goes into that.
That is the journey, is understanding. I had a client just yesterday and I can't remember the word she said, but when she said it, I said, and it was a word like fresh. I think it might have been, I can't remember. It's written on my pad somewhere because I had a little giggle and I went, so what does that mean? And she goes, fresh. And I said, I know fresh, but my fresh, your fresh, we might be different fresh.
Right.
Tell me what fresh means to you. Tell me in a color. Oh, she says, in a color. And I'm like, yeah, in a color. Like, what color does it bring up? Does green fresh? Is blue fresh? And she said, oh, didn't tell me what fresh was. I love burgundies. And I said, okay, so how are they fresh? And she said, oh, well, when they're mixed with, with whites, they really pop. And I'm like, okay. I know her wardrobe has got lots of burgundies and lots of mauve tones and lavender tones and stuff like that. They resonate with her. Right. And I'm like, okay. And in doing that, I go, so that to her is the start of a conversation around what would be fresh, but she's looking for contrast.
Right.
She's looking for power in a color and then contrast so that that stands alone. And then you start to build off what the emotions are that brings. So what does that make her feel when that's like that? Why is that way? But just
Right.
really interesting to try and go, well, fresh to me, fresh could
Yeah.
be a bright red apple. It could be a
Right.
green one. It could be,
Right.
yeah, what's fresh?
What is fresh?
Yeah.
What does that mean to client? That is a really interesting journey and a conversation, and how that could relate to a big impact of a swing and a miss on a design concept,
Oh,
you know,
hugely.
by not defining that, by
Yeah.
not really asking those deeper questions. And I think a lot of that is, I feel for the younger designers who are like, have to learn that through the
Mm.
ropes,
Mm.
because like they learn by failing in
Mm-hmm.
that, because they might not have asked that question and they might have come back with a mint green, you
Yeah.
know.
And get shot down in flames. Well, I
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't have come back with burgundy.
Who would?
Yeah. I did have the cue already. So one of the things that I do, and it's probably from coming from a fashion background originally, is if I get any chance, and if I don't get a chance, I often ask, I'll say, show me your closet, and I'll look in their closet, and it tells me a few things. One is how tidy they are, whether they
Yeah.
group in colors or whether they group in styles. So a bit on how their practicality is. Do all blue shirts hang here? That's often a man's closet. But then would
Right.
a knit shirt and a woven shirt hang in the same space? Maybe, maybe not. Would a knit shirt hang? Would it be folded? Just that organizational thing tells me a little bit about how their brains are working. Then I see what are the predominant colors that are in there. I ask to see separates from what would you class as work? What would you class as relaxed? What would you class as evening? What are the sort of genres you're dressing in out of these things? Show me some things you bought that you've never worn. Are
Right.
a real telltale, because they fell in love with it either because their girlfriend was there and they loved it. The sales agent did a unbelievably sales job on them, or
Right.
they actually thought it was going to be them, but they've
Right.
never managed to kind of wear it.
Right.
They're in love with it, but they couldn't. That doesn't feel right now. It's on, or it doesn't engage them. There's other things that
Right.
beat it, and so they were maybe in a genre where they were imagining somebody they weren't yet, or wanted to be but aren't.
Right.
And then so you get to see whether they theme dress or whether they, how they dress and that thing, and then you can start to play with that. But that I know from doing clothing, but I certainly know that it's fun to do that when you're doing interior decoration.
I would bet that would give you a lot of a window
Insight.
into what they're,
Yeah.
what they're looking for. I have a good friend of mine who does a Pinterest board for each
Oh,
client. She
yeah.
makes them make a Pinterest board of everything that they like just for a couple weeks, just pin
Mm-hmm.
anything you like. And the husband and the wife and the kids and everybody, and she will go through all of that and try to find where those commonalities are. And that's where she starts
The threads.
from that.
It's
Yeah.
great way of doing it. Yeah.
Lots of different ways to like figure out what it is that makes them tick, what
Mm.
is going to be,
Yeah.
pleasing
What's
for
gonna
everybody in the home.
Yeah. And,
You know, 'cause
then elevating that,
elevating it, of course.
because
Yeah.
you're a designer. Mm.
Right. Right. And you're giving them something that they didn't even know that they wanted at the end,
Absolutely. So where do
Yeah.
you see the interior design community going next?
We're going to move, like, the community itself,
Yeah,
or
well, no, what you're doing with it, because as you said before,
we're
it's a
going
non-for-profit. It's all these things
right.
already.
We're the next step is going to be conferences and retreats, I think. I think that's the eventual. Our designers want to meet each other in real life. They've known each other now for a
Yeah.
long time, communicated with each other. So we see there being a need for. There are some great conferences out there that we participate in already. So it's been something I've been reluctant to get my feet into, because there are so many great ones
already out there. Yeah.
already existing out there. But I think there's some things that we can bring to the space that would be interesting and unique. I'd love to see it be workshop based with like some experts there that are really like very like you can walk away with more than just like inspiration, but like actual tangible,
A real
like
learning experience.
learning
Yep.
experience, you know?
Yep.
So it could be like, we'll have a contracts person there. We'll
Yep.
have a website guy there. We'll have a great PR person there. You know,
Yep.
we will have like a great accounting person there that really knows, like, here's what you need to do from an overview of your books, like
Yep.
how you really need to
Yep.
be looking at profit margin, you know, and insurance, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever we can
Mm-hmm.
think of like, here's the business. How can we, in a few days, give you as much knowledge as we can so that you walk away not feeling super overwhelmed, but you've got some tangible like
Sure.
tracks,
I think it's
you
brilliant.
know?
I think it's
And
brilliant.
there might be a limit to that. Like, say we have all these experts, they come in, they do speaking arrangements, and then they have like a meet and greet where they'll
Yeah.
intensively talk to, you know, a person for
Yep.
half an hour or something.
Yep.
And we'll do that for a period of time, but you can only pick like two instead
Yes.
of being, or one or something. So you have to pick which one is most important to you. And then, you know, everybody will get a chance to see something that is really important to them, but walk away with some real.
And also, if say people were really wanting to be, if the major part of the community was digging for, say, you know, something that was on, say, on contracts, and you go, okay, well, we can bring in 4 contracts people, rather than one contracts person and overwhelm them, can bring in 4 contracts people so that everybody can get a touch on contracts, and you can make it more of a major speaker. So all these things, here's a workbook, come through a journey with me. Yeah. I think that would be really good, really good.
I think it'd be really great. And you know, the other part of it we'd love to have is like some roundtables that are just the members, where we pick people at random instead of like, hey, you're in your clique where you know everybody. We're going to put you in little groups of, you know, 10 of you where you don't know anybody, and you have to like give your elevator pitch, like who you are, what you're doing, what your biggest business problem is. And you sit there and talk to each other about that and how you can solve each other's problems in that little group there too. Because we recognize, you know, even in the community, like if I put in, give you 12 experts or 20 experts, there's probably 100 more experts right in the room that are not the speakers, but they have been through that and can handle that problem in a different way. So how can we pull the community in to know, you know, knowing each other and meeting each other in a different way? And then of course we're going to throw in, like, we're interior design community, we throw in a lot of fun and humor and,
oh, of course,
you know, jokes.
Yeah. No, lots of fun in
you
it.
know, it's got to be fun, it's got to be funny, you know. We do a lot with our memes, so we have to have some comedy and
some comedy. It's got to be fun. It's got to be fun and engaging. A great learning experience, lots of playtime in it, without just all being heavy and serious. So I have a couple of last questions, and we didn't get to talk on AI, but maybe we can come back and do that another time. I would love to. One is your favorite place in your own home, and what emotion does it evoke?
Well, I would probably say that my favorite place, we have a parlor in the front of the house, and it's got this curved staircase. And it was definitely the wow factor when we bought this house. It's a 1920s house. And that's probably my favorite room because it was the room that made me want this house and seeing my family grow up here, you know? So I fell in love. That was the door I walked into, and you see the staircase and there's paneling everywhere. It's just gorgeous. It's some great millwork, you know, and I was like, this is it. But I will say separately, the coolest thing in my house is that they put I know a designer did this because like how functional it is.
Had to be.
In the primary bathroom, there is a laundry chute that goes right down to the laundry room, and I love it so much. I love it. It's like, in fact, I love it so much that I've told my entire family they're not allowed to use it. Only I'm allowed to use it because I want it to be my laundry chute for my clothes only.
So if you had to sum both of those up separately, the first one, what emotion does it evoke when you're in that entry point where the staircase goes up and the millwork's so beautiful?
I think the emotion is probably, I would say, accomplishment. Like, I feel like this house was a big, for me, like I grew up in a very, small house and in the mountains, and it was an old house that was like my parents didn't really fix up well, and to have a house that I think is grand like that was like a big
You'd
accomplishment. I feel a
arrived.
sense of accomplishment. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So it tells
Yeah,
you that every time you go through there.
sure. Yeah.
It anchors it to you that
I did
that you're yeah, well,
it.
and that you brought value. Because the only way to
Yeah.
accomplish anything is to bring
Yeah.
value. I
Yeah.
like that. The laundry chute. I'm dying to hear what emotion you would put to the laundry chute.
I think it's just, for me, it's just like the convenience of it,
Oh yeah.
like I can just like throw it, it's down there. I don't have to, how many years I spent lugging kids' clothes up and down the stairs to go down to do the laundry. I have 1 minute of peace for myself, that's just a luxury for me.
Yeah.
My kids are older now, they're in their 20s. So it's just one is 19, I'm 19 to 23. So
Right.
it's just like I feel like this is this little thing from mom.
Yep. Yep.
I love that. And I don't think it took me a long time to have any sort of like, when you're a mother, there's no boundaries with you and your kids. Like you aren't even in the bathroom where they can't just run in and be like, Mom, I need this. And you're just like, I am on the back.
Could I deal with it later?
No, that's just how being a mother is. There are no
Yeah.
boundaries. And so it's nice to start to have these moments
Just
where
set a
you're
couple.
claiming your space a little bit. Like, this is mine. No,
I love
have
it.
it.
I love it. I'm putting it down. I love it. It's so good. I think that a really interesting thing with that is I've done laundry shoots in lots of houses, and because they usually are a straight down drop if it's 3 stories or whatever,
Yeah.
it is actually a challenge to, when you're designing, to make sure that you can line it up so that if it's one that the whole family can use, or
Right.
if it's one that's privately used, just to get it into the right space, it defines a central block of the design. You can put staircases to different levels in different spaces, but that has to be one central shaft, and
Yes.
it defines the thinking, and it's a really interesting thing. And I love that you love it so much. I have one in my own home as well.
Yeah. I love it.
Kind of actually asked you my other question, which was, what did you see the interior design community? If you had to create this all again, what would you choose if it couldn't be interior design?
Oh, I don't know. I came from the graphic design industry and I really liked that industry. It's very different from this one, but I probably would have stayed in that industry because I really enjoyed it. I worked in that industry for about, I would say 14 years or so. So I feel very connected to that, the printers and the fine art, the
Mm-hmm.
fine art side of digital printing. I know the founders of of giclée. Like
Yeah.
I know the guy who invented the word giclée or termed the word giclée as a print. I
Right.
know Jack began, he passed away not long ago. So I was lucky enough to be in that industry as in its infancy and seeing it grow, and meet the printmakers from all over the world that were making
Mm.
art,
Mm.
printable, you could print art, you could
Yeah.
print wallpaper. That concept was new, like 20 years ago. It was
I
brand new. People
know.
weren't
I
doing this,
know.
like even
Yeah.
litho is really different.
Yeah.
So, it's the screen printing industry earlier, but that's very limiting, so
Yeah.
digital print process and how that came to be. I'd probably stick in that. I would probably stay in that
Yeah.
industry. They're very similar in terms of the passion for quality, but they're
Yeah.
not similar in who they are. So if I'm in the graphic design industry, it's almost a flip. Like it's about 75% men or 80% men
Yeah.
and
Right.
20% women, I would say. And then this industry was a complete flip in who I would be dealing
Mm.
with.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was a big change from,
Yeah.
how you appeal to men,
Yeah.
in that industry,
Yeah.
the nerd, like I always consider them like nerds, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
nerdy guys.
Well, they're kind
versus
of engineering type based people.
yeah,
Yeah.
engineering.
Very accurate,
Now,
precise. Yeah.
yes, versus,
Creative,
creative
looser.
women for the
Yeah.
most part,
Mm.
and but analytical creative,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and how you work with the both of those people and in your worlds. And luckily I worked well with both.
Yeah.
So.
Well, obviously you've got some really good skills there. Laurie, fantastic conversation. I would love
Thank
to
you.
pick up another one when you've got time.
Yes.
There's so many subjects to talk about within this.
Oh, absolutely.
Really appreciate your time and so much that you've given for the listeners. It's brilliant.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, hun. It was brilliant. Thank you for tuning into our conversation. I hope it left you both informed and inspired. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen, and please don't hesitate to share your design thoughts with me. It's always a joy to hear from you. If you're like me and crave a deeper dive into design thinking, coupled with a love for travel and adventure, consider one of my architectural adventures. Join me and some of my wonderful design friends and embark on a journey of a lifetime. Apply for an unforgettable design experience at adrianramsey.com. With our clients spanning the globe, I firmly believe behind every great project are great people. If you're a great person and seeking to turn your dream into a reality, I'd be honored to design your home with you. Why not join the ranks of our exceptional clients and let's make your heart sing? Reach out to me at studio@ardesignhouse.com. That's studio@ardesignhouse.com, and let's get a conversation going and make your heart sing.